1 in 3 is intended for mature audiences. Episodes contain explicit content and may be triggering as they often include violence and other varying forms of abuse such as emotional, psychological, sexual, and physical. In most cases, names have been changed to protect all involved. Please note, statements and opinions of guests do not necessarily reflect those of my own. Hi, warriors. Welcome back to 1 in 3. I'm your host, Ingrid. If you are joining me for the first time, I'm going to ask you go back and listen to episode 2. In that episode, Kathy details her story of abuse she experienced throughout her life. Today, she continues her story and leads us to the incredible work she is doing now. This is part 2 and the conclusion of Kathy's story. Please note, this episode also includes details of attempted suicide.
And it had on it, he blocked out the letters, and it said, "Ducks and Kills Professional Photographer." It was on my computer. What proof do I have that he did it? The boxes came, when my stuff came, there was a coaster stuck on the tape, and it was a wedding coaster. Now, I threw out every single piece of stuff that he ever gave me. It was a wedding coaster, and it had on it, "One day closer, kiss, kiss, kiss." I can remember standing in my shower, and I bought this really expensive shampoo, and it was from when I was with him, and I went, I don't know what he's done to him. This man is capable of anything. I can't use this shampoo. So I threw it out. And that was the day that I realised he is capable of anything. And I honestly still truly believe that. And I was terrified for a long time. In fact, I still sleep with things under my pillow. But it doesn't affect my life because I went, right, what's the worst thing that can happen? He kills me. I'm not scared of dying. I don't want to die, don't get me wrong. But I'm not scared of it. And I thought, you're not taking 1 second more of my life. So do I protect myself? Yes. Am I scared of him? No. Although, if anything happened, you find his DNA under my fingers, I can tell you I'd fight back like you wouldn't believe. But all of those things then led me. So I had really, really bad advice from police. And I had really good advice from police. I remember one police officer said to me, just move on with your life. Just forget about it. Don't do the DVO. Just forget it. And in a way, she was right and she was wrong. I didn't get the justice that I deserved. We went to trial. So he lied. He lied to the police. He lied to my family. He lied to my friends. He lied to the judge. And the judge, I was stupid. He cost me a couple of $100,000 and I didn't want to spend any money. And I thought, I've got all this proof, which I did, which in itself was really hard because the victim has to come up with the proof. And I had the proof. And I had the photos. I had everything that he was doing. And I thought that was enough. I had the evidence. I didn't have the proof. So, for example, with my things that he destroyed, my stuff went into, I had a police escort and my beautiful daughter went over and started packing for me. And then I went over with my neighbour and I packed. Now, there was those photo albums that I'm talking about, they were packed. I know they were packed. And it all went into the studio and it was there for the Thursday night, Friday night until the removalist came. But I didn't have proof of that. I do now. And he just said, no, the removalist came that day and took it. And I said to the judge, everything that came out of that storage shed came to my place because the removalists had a list. Those things were not there. And the last person who had access to them was him. But see, I couldn't prove it. I also didn't know. Somebody has told me, and I don't know if this is true, but somebody had told me that I could have asked for a lie detector test for him and me. And I wish I had done that. So the way that it went, we need some laws to change. For example, I couldn't get legal aid because we had a business together, but he ripped me off the business. Totally. He took the cash business. He walked past me with his wallet and flicked the $100 bills at me. Meanwhile, I was forced onto a pension because my photography business was gone. I was homeless. I was stressed. He was, what I would do differently, let me tell you, what I know now to what I knew then. And that's why, I've done this, because if I can help people to leave safely sooner and protect their mental health, like I would have nothing to do with him, absolutely nothing to do with him. He would send me 700 messages, constantly blowing up my phone, with disgusting things as well as questions about settlement. I would just have nothing to do with him and I would let the legal people take care of it. First thing I would say is, do you know about narcissistic abuse? I would ask that of the judge, the police, the counsellors, anyone and everyone. I would say to them, do you know about it? Do you know the games they play? Because I do believe that, of course I didn't know this then, that I am involved with one. And I would let them sort it out. I'd never, ever, ever go to court without legal representation. Ever, ever, ever. I would document everything that was in them. I had photos, but I would take photos of what's in the bag. I was on a time restraint. There are so many things that I would just do differently. I'd have a diary. I'd write down the name of the removalist, the date. You're in such a turmoil because you're an amicable person. You expect the person that you're with for so many years to be amicable about it. Like we'd gone away and before it was finally over, I told him we were done. It was over on my birthday because he threw in my face what happened on my birthday. He threw it in my face on my birthday. I said to him, that's it, and he, I said, we're done. And we were actually looking at, I was going to keep the house and he was going to get a different business because, as I said, my photography studio was in the house. My solicitor now says to me, do you really, really think that he would have been amicable? And I'm like, no, I don't now. I believe that he would have at that time. But he had, we went up to my sister and brother-in-law's for Christmas because it was the first time they'd had Christmas in 16 years. And nobody would have known. Nobody would have known that this was what was going on. I had called my sister that day and on my birthday crying about how he treated me. But nobody would have known because that's not who I am. I am now, but I wasn't then.
Yes, you are.
I would not have told them one single thing that was going on. But when we came back, I said to him, we're done. He was mad because I'd said to him, you need to admit that what you're saying, some of the things that he would say to me was just disgusting, really disgusting things, like if I didn't want to have sex, what is it made of gold? Do you have power of the pussy? Things like that, really, and that's mild compared to some of the things that he would say. And I'd be like, don't speak to me like that. That's disgusting. But he still would. And I'd pushed him on this. I'd had enough. I reached my limit, if you like, and at some point I do put myself first. It was many, many, many years though, because this relationship was like a roller coaster. We'd have really good times, especially when people were around us, and then boom, and I'd be left going, why can't it just be, like, it doesn't have to be the high highs, but why can't we just, like, I know in normal relationships you argue, you fight, you disagree, but this was different. It was avoidance, like that emotional coldness that he would get for no reason. Like, we may have just been intimate and then he wouldn't speak to me for days. And it's like, why? What did I do? Oh, I'm just tired. Oh, I'm working hard. He'd have all these reasonable excuses. There was nothing reasonable about it. Now I look at it, I go, yep, you were just controlling and manipulating me to get me to be off balance emotionally. But when we came back from my sisters, I'd said to him, I'm done. I'm done. And he's like, well, where's the divorce papers? You want a divorce? I'll sign the papers now. But then he went on to tell everyone that I left him for someone else. So he hacked into my social media. He put a tracking app on my phone, which I didn't know about. He hid in because I'd go back and I'd do, see, again, I thought we could be amicable. Looking back, so stupid. I'd go back and do photo shoots, and he hid in the house for 3 hours. He hid in the house. He hid the big truck. And my neighbour said to me, that's really, really concerning. And I still didn't get it. Like, I still didn't twig how dangerous this was, because I believed those high times. When I put the initial DVO, I was explaining this to the solicitor, and he said, you really need to think about why you're more scared of this person than the guy who held a shotgun to your head. Like, why are you more scared of him? And I did think about it, and eventually, with the shampoo incident, I just realised he was capable of anything. And knowing that he was capable of anything was just, I then made the decision that anybody, and I do mean anybody, who sat with him, who still had lunch with him, who still had him at their house, despite your relationship with me, and it did break my heart, it really did, I'm not going to have anything to do with you. And the people that I trusted and believed that would support me, some of them didn't. So I had a whole other level of heartbreak within this relationship. It took a lot from me. And I always say there are 3 sides to the story. There's mine, there's his, and then there's the truth. And I respect that. I really do. But I can tell you that this was the most that I've ever been abused in my life, including my mother and the physically abusive relationship. And I was still civil, still am, to my mother and to the other relationship. It doesn't mean that I agree with what happened, but I did end up working out why I went through it all. And my total realisation was a lot of it was me and my boundaries and what I put up with, and putting so I wanted a family. I wanted a relationship with my mother. I wanted to be on that with this. I wanted my relationships to work, and I believed that they could change, that they could stay on that level of loving me. It was just a matter of time. I can even remember going, you just haven't been loved right. No. How about you find somebody who gives you as much as you give them? Somebody that you can experience true love with. And I have had that. I have been blessed in my life to have that. I know what it feels like to be treated right. And I guess I believe that everybody could do that. And that's not the case. It's just not. Some people will never change. Others will. I've seen people change. They were never going to change for me because I was too forgiving. I didn't have my boundaries set. I didn't say, like I did in a way. I can remember after being physically abused, I would say, if you ever touch me, I'm out of here. But there's so much more to abuse than that. You do not have to be physically abused to be severely, severely abused. And in fact, and I know people are going to not like this. This is just my opinion from my experience. I'd rather be punched in the face every day than go through that sneaky abuse. It's horrific. Being able to identify an abuser, the characteristics of coercive control, the characteristics of psychological abuse, the characteristics of emotional abuse, the characteristics of a narcissist. Those things have set me free. I swung the other way where I didn't trust anyone, and I do mean anyone. I trusted nobody. I trusted nothing that came out of their mouth. I didn't trust myself. How could I trust anyone else? And then once I did my research and I learnt everything about abuse and how it happens and why it happens and my role in all of that, it just set me free. And I was able to heal from it and do up my little presentation. So in amongst this abuse, I went to university. I graduated in the top 10% of my chosen career. I'm a fighter. I've always been a fighter, and my psychologist, and I do have a regular psychologist that I talk to, she said to me, you're very lucky you're a fighter, because if you weren't, this would have quite possibly killed you. In fact, this sounds terrible, but I do know that I'm capable of killing myself. Not that I would. Please don't take that the wrong way. I had attempted suicide when I was 13 with the abuse from my mother, and I wanted to die. I did not want to be here. And I'd taken a whole heap of tablets, and I was going to go and die in the park, and I thought, I can't let people find me. That's just horrible for the person who's going to come up on this 13-year-old girl. So I barricaded myself in the bedroom, and my mother broke in, and I was put in ICU. They were hard tablets. And I remember still didn't want to be here. I just did not want to live. It was a horrible, horrible place for me. I have a lot to live for. I have children and grandchildren that bring my heart so much joy. And I've also learned that you might go through these really, 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 really dark times. To be honest with you, during the last abuse, I did sit there with a bottle of wine and some tablets, and I even put a note on my dog for my neighbours to find. I was so severely abused and depressed with it all. But I also have photos of my children, and I just went, I can't do this. Even if I can't do it for me, I can't do it for them. But now I look at it and I go, I honestly think it wouldn't matter what somebody did to me. I'm worthy of living. You never know what's around the corner, who's around the corner, what your life is going to bring you. Knowledge is power, and knowledge is, spreading the awareness and having the education to help others. It's just given me a sense of purpose of everything that I went through. it's brought me back to me. I don't think I'll ever be who I was before the abuse. Even after my first abusive relationship, I was still me. I was this very kind, forgiving person. I'm still kind, but I'm not as forgiving. I will not tolerate any form of abuse anymore. It's not in my DNA anymore. So if you come to me, and I don't care who you are, you can live next door, you can be at work, you can, be in a relationship, and I don't care if this starts 10, 15 years down the track. Let them go and let them grow. One of the things that I teach in my presentation is that some abusers will change. They will. I've seen it happen. But you have to give them time to. And in that time, you work on yourself. So you work on who you are. And you give them time to change away from you. So let them go, let them grow. I'm not saying it's extremely hard. People stay for so many different reasons. There are parents out there that stay because the other parent is abusive and they can't stand to co-parent. They can't bring that pain for their children. I was very lucky in that regard, so they stay for that. I stayed for my own reasons, and I would never ever judge anyone for staying. I would try and help them to see the truth and to open their eyes to who they're with so that they can make an informed decision about what they want for their future. It's extremely bad for your health to be with somebody who's toxic. You can hear my voice, I ended up with tumours in my throat, thyroid tumours, which I believe are from stress. I've ended up with autoimmune diseases and things like that. So even though I'm a very strong lady, my body has gone, you've been through quite a bit. Let's grow some tumours for you. I do that very well, they say. So it's if I can help people to recognise, and, it could be anyone. I've got, how we can date, red and green flags when you're dating. So I really want to get my presentation in the schools. I think people need to see the characteristics of other people. Like, it sounds very judgmental, but I can see it straight away now. Like, I can see a person in front of me. There's still those covert, sneaky ones that you won't see until later, but I can pinpoint those red flags like nobody's business. For example, there's a difference between love bombing and love at first sight. So love at first sight, I truly believe in that. I'm a great believer in love. I'm a great believer in happily ever after. Even after everything that's happened, I still believe in it, only because I've had it. The love at first sight is you recognise somebody at a soul level. Love bombing, this person is trying to gift you and give you, drag you in and draw you in and capture you to manipulate you emotionally with distance. Then, they will go, it'll blow hot and cold. Love at first sight doesn't blow hot and cold. It's not a roller coaster ride. You have hard times that you have to get through, but it's not that. It's about, love is about respect, being respectful of somebody. A respectful person doesn't abuse you. That's it in a nutshell, to be honest.
Yes, in a mutually respectful relationship, there's not a one-sided power shift. It's not one person who's dictating how the relationship goes or how the other individual is supposed to live their life. It's an equal
is.
playing field.
It is, but you can see in that too so let's have an example where two people are mutually respectful and then one goes through some really, really hard times. Say they lose their parents, and then they, whatever happens that gets them to turn to devices like alcohol or drugs or whatever. And you can see that can change somebody's personality. And I think it's then that the other person can say, this is hurting us and you need to stop. And some relationships can change from that too, where they will walk away from what was beautiful, respectful relationship that has changed. People can grow apart. Normal people separate. Normal people divorce. I say normal because I do believe that in domestic violence and abusive relationships, we have an empath and a narcissist. And the empath has no or very little boundaries. I often believe that I refer to myself as a fix-it fairy because that's what I was. I'll fix this. No, you can't do it. You can't fix anything.
Right.
If they're broken,
and you hold out. Absolutely. You hold out for that hope and you cling to that. Again, the good moments, look, they're a good person because look at all the good moments that we've had. And I believe that you're right. Like the empathetic person is clinging to that and clinging to the ideal that this is a good individual. Everybody is good in their core, but that's not the case.
No. And I think there are people out there as equally as loving and giving as you. And there are people out there that will take advantage of your loving, giving nature. And that's very hard if it's in a family, or if it's in a relationship. Because like you said, we over believe in them. We just need that goodness to continue. Like, I can see that you are a beautiful person. Why would you do this for me? And then, often confusion in it. If you're in a relationship where you're feeling confused, confusion is a red flag that you're being abused. It really is. So if you feel like you can't do anything right and, sometimes you're like, why did you do that? Like, why are you being nasty and distant? So a normal person will say, oh, look, I'm sorry. I just don't feel well. They will have off days. Normal people have off days. But there's a repetitiveness to the abuse. They may abuse you in a different way. Like they may not do physical abuse. They might come back with verbal abuse or coercive control or, different areas of abuse. And they can do it openly or they can do it with sneaky actions. And it's very, very hard to pinpoint those sneaky actions. But I guess it's that state of confusion. If you think, why did you do that? Like, why did you choose that exact moment when something special was happening to go and get a coffee? Like, why did you do that? But not once. They do it over and over and over again. But in a different way.
And yes. And then the sneaky part is where they make you question you're overreacting. I don't know why you're overreacting. That was not what happened at all. Or you're twisting the story. That's not the true events. And it makes you question your sanity and your reality.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. I didn't say that. That's not what I meant. Excuse me. That's exactly what you said. How did you not mean that? Like, how can I take this any other way than what you've said? Yeah, they definitely make you question your reality and your motives and your beliefs and who you are as a person. Like I said, I was too trusting, too giving. Well, the right person will appreciate that. The right person will appreciate, though I'm not as trusting anymore, obviously, or as giving either. It's like, it's a two-way street. It's got to be a two-way street there. And, it's probably a little bit harder on the person because they won't get away with anything.
Right.
And I think the right person will bring to you what you need. So if you say to them, yeah, no, that's just something that I don't like, they will change that behavior, whereas an abusive person won't.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, you know, when you start dating someone, I really think being in line, having your values and beliefs in line with each other is really, really important. Like if you need someone who has your back and you start dating and something happens in your life and they don't support you, it's a red flag that that's your future. Dr. Phil says, you know, that past behavior is future performance. Always look at that. And I mean, look at what you can tolerate as well. Like I think that we can be, if we've gone through an abusive situation, we can be extremely judgmental. I have to watch myself with that. I can tell somebody who is arrogant by the way they walk, and that is extremely judgmental of me. And I've said, well, you know, I've come to the conclusion I'd have to know them, speak to them before I said, you know, you're arrogant, you know. But those little things that you do see in the checkout when, you know, they're getting their partner to run back and get this, and it's male and female. I mean, it's not just male. I mean, you can tell that I've had abuse from male and female. The sad part about that is that the males generally don't speak about it because there's a level of pride there, and that's why there's a lot of male suicide.
Yes, and I didn't realize that you actually, specifically in Australia, there's quite a high incidence of male suicide in relation to domestic violence.
Yeah. Yes. I think women, I think it's very hard for an empath male to set boundaries with a narcissistic female because there's a level of pride there that they need to be the contributor. If you can imagine a male's, they need to be the provider. So they're going to provide for their family no matter what. So there's that. And then they're trapped in this cycle. And then so many women, I've heard stories where they just use their children as tools, you know, and even one extreme where the person punched herself in the face and had them charged. You know, that's extreme level of abuse. And females can be extremely nasty, as you've heard from my story, you know, extremely. There's no difference to me, age, gender, you know, what you do for a living, where you live. Abuse is non-specific. It comes in any shape and any form, unfortunately.
And I think what I'm hoping to get out of this podcast is for stories like yours to be heard so people can draw similarities. If you're in that relationship where your reality is getting twisted and you're questioning your sanity, maybe, you know, if you hear this, you understand, like, well, actually, maybe it's not me. Maybe there is some abuse happening. And I'm with you. There are no boundaries to where domestic abuse or violence can happen at all. And I think it's just very important for anyone who has the capabilities, who's gone through this and has the capabilities and the strength to tell what's happened, for everyone to hear all these commonalities, because it's crazy that you can hear a story that's not your story and it's not identical to your story, but you can draw the similarities between yours and that individual.
Absolutely. And that's why with this presentation that I've got, I go into the specifics. So you will specifically see what emotional abuse is, what psychological abuse is, what coercive control is, what the areas of abuse are, what types of narcissists we have. And I often say to people, if you think you're being abused, write down the 6 areas and write down the sneaky and the open actions. So the things that are getting you confused, you will be shocked, absolutely shocked at how abused you are being. You know, you will go through a period where you will just write down from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And I look back now and I think, my goodness, it was such a regular thing. Even driving in the car, the reckless driving. I'd had car accidents and he would drive to simulate those car accidents, to put the fear of God in me, and I would be hanging on for dear life and begging, to how he would choke the dog, things like that, I'd be throwing sticks at him and saying, animal cruelty, see you do this, you're going to be locked up. Like, how dare you treat her like that? And he would be, the trainer told us to knock her off her feet. And I'm like, the trainer didn't tell you to choke her. It was just, he would have plausible excuses. Like with the driving, he would say, oh, I have to let the driver, the traffic move, or not my fault he pulled out on a roundabout. No, but it is your fault that you sped up. And then I'm pumping the air brakes. You can tell a lot about somebody by how they treat you in those moments, that respect that they have for you. They can be so sneaky with how they do it. And, we tend to, as empaths, like you said, we hang on to those good times more than we look at the reality of the bad times. Like, why are we putting up with this again? Especially if you have a lot of visitors and the abuse is, not really evident, as it is evident, but it comes in small amounts, and then it'll come in a big amount, and then it'll come in a small amount. So it's very confusing. It's not like some abuse can be in your face 24/7, you didn't do as you're told, and bang, or call you names, or some abuse is extremely severe and other abuse is hot and cold. It's that confusion part that's the area that we get stuck in. But all abuse is extremely dangerous, and being able to get out safely has to be the number one priority. Being able to remove yourself without being hurt. I know that my ex would never, ever, ever want to go to jail. So that was in my favour because I think he would do me in and then himself rather than go to jail. But, I am blessed, I think, that I am still here, and I think people would look at him, and same with my mother, and think, they wouldn't hurt you. But I look at it now and I think, yeah, they actually really could.
And I think that's really important to hear for people who have not been in domestic violence situations, who have not witnessed it themselves, because in their minds, they think, well, how did this person even get tricked into this relationship? Obviously, they're an abuser. These abusers don't walk around with their abuse blatantly out there.
You don't go to bed with monster.
Right. They're not going to say, hi, do you want to go on a date? I'm going to abuse you.
No.
In some form. Right.
Some of this can be years and years later. The little red flags are there that you ignore because you see mostly a nice person, but the red flags are there. And that's, what I teach, those red flags and what to look for. And by the time you're invested in this relationship, by the time the abuse starts, you have a lot to lose. It's up to the victim, to leave because the abuser won't go. So it's up to the victim to pick up their family, pick up their children, physically leave their home. Now, people would say to me, I'd never let anyone treat me like that. And in fact, I say that now, but they come from a level where they haven't been abused. They haven't had that sneaky abuse. They don't realise that it's insidious. It can just creep into your relationship. That's what I mean. Some of it can be in your face and some of it can happen over years and years of being together. And, there might be substance abuse that brings out the worst in this person. They could have been what I call a covert narcissist, so a sneaky abuser for forever, and you just didn't see it because you choose to believe the best in people. One of the things I will never, ever, ever do is judge someone for staying and for being with an abuser. You do the best with what you have at the time. If you are in an abusive relationship, you're either a narcissist yourself, so two narcissists in an abusive relationship, holy dooly, or you are an extremely loving, forgiving, beautiful human who is being taken advantage of. And people don't see that as being an honourable trait. They see it as, why would you let them do this to you? And the answer why, we all have our own reasons why we stay. It could be because you believe in them. It could be because you want a family. It could be because you want to protect your children. It could be because you're financially not able. But then I go back to, it is extremely dangerous to be with somebody who is abusive. It's physically and mentally very bad for you and your health to be with someone. And there is life after abuse. There is so much more for your soul to be at peace and to be happy, even if you're on your own for the rest of your life. Who cares? If you can live each day with gratitude and without somebody belittling you and making you feel like you're not worthwhile, and you give that to yourself, you have a loving life ahead of you. I'd rather live in a shoebox than live with an abusive person ever again. And I just won't. I don't care I'm in my late 50s. If I am blessed enough to find someone to share the rest of my life with, if when I'm 99 that person does something that I disagree with, I'll be like, go and grow, mate. I'm not doing this. It won't change for me now. I've learnt my lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing all of those stories. You have a pretty strong social presence as well. Do you want to share what some of your links are?
Sure. So I just have a survivor's suggestions, which is my reel. I do basically my presentation in reels. So my name on Facebook is, can I share that? Can I share my name? Do you mind? Is that all right?
If you feel comfortable with it, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I do. I don't, I haven't named my abusers, and I never will. That's not, people who know me know what I've been through, but nobody who doesn't know me will know who my abuser was, and I would never do that. That's not what this is about. But yeah, if you want to follow me, my name is Kathy Pepper, Pepper, on Facebook. So I have my reels on there, and my domestic violence no more on YouTube. My presentation is actually called Turning Shit into Gold. A lot of people said to me, can you change the name, because it's swearing. And I went, no, because really that's what it is. And I do presentations, like I've done them for the CWA and whatnot. And I actually dress up in gold because I'm turning shit into gold.
That's amazing. I love it.
Thank you. But by the time I'm finished, like I said, I don't know everything, but by the time I'm finished, you will have a handle of what abuse is and how to avoid it. Thank you for the opportunity of being able to tell my story and for your role in raising awareness, around domestic violence and abuse. It's such a hard topic to talk about, and so many people refuse to talk about it. In fact, a girlfriend said to me, when are you going to get over this? And I said, I am. And she said, I said, you think I'm not over it because I talk about it? I said, no, there's a difference. I can talk about it without it feeling, without feeling it. I can talk about it as a tool to help others. Don't get me wrong, I do have times where it will hit me, that certain memories will come up and, I'll have a moment where I go, oh, that was horrible. So I'm human, but I don't live in it. It's not a part of my life. It's an experience that I went through to help others, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much. Very powerful episode. I think actually maybe this will be 2 episodes, but very powerful. And I think there's a lot to take away from everything that you shared with all of us. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Turning shit into gold, Ingrid.
Turning shit into gold. I love it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I would like to heartily thank Kathy once again for sharing her experiences and advice with us. I find her unrelenting belief in happily ever after and true love incredibly inspiring, as is her ongoing drive and dedication to empowering others who are in domestic violence situations. You can find links to Kathy's socials on the 1 in 3 website under the guest tab. Goodness, Kathy. Keep up the good work, and let's keep turning shit into gold. For everyone else, have each other's back, stay strong, and always remember, it's not your fault. There is hope, and you are not alone. I'll be back next week as Doc shares his story. Thanks for listening. Find more information, register as a guest, or leave a review by going to the website 1in3podcast.com. That's the number 1, IN, the number 3, podcast.com. Follow 1 in 3 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1 in 3 podcast. To help me out, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. 1 in 3 is a .5 Pinoy production. Music written and performed by Tim Crow.